They've won 3 games in a row for the first time since 2016. They have won 3 games in a row for the first time since 2016. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Let's get right into it. Okay, so I'm going to have a big old pile of crow here. The Giants were 1-7, and when they lost that 7th game, you might remember the date of that game. It was October 22nd. That may not flash. They played the Eagles. That may not flash. But I believe that's the old game where you-know-who took a little old tumble. And everyone said, oh, my goodness, does this not encapsulate the Daniel Jones era, the Joe Judge era, the Dave Gettleman era, a trip, a fall, and a loss to the Birds? At that point, they were 1-7. Then 11 days later, on Monday Night Football, Key, they played the Bucs and lost on a controversial call at the end, a little PI in the end zone, when we thought the Bucs were a little better than they were. And you said right then, I don't care what you say, they're making the playoffs. I don't care what you say, they're making the playoffs. And I said, Key, bro, they're 1-7. How in the world could they make the playoffs? At this moment, on this day, November 30th, 2020, the New York Giants have won 3 in a row. They're in first place and in pole position to host a playoff game.
Yes, that is correct. They are in position to do it. Now, whether or not they're going to do it, I would say that they've been the most consistent team in the NFC East. There's no question about it. The only game that you point to is the San Francisco 49er game where they just looked like a bad football team all the way around. That was the beginning of the year. But for whatever reason it is, Joe Judge has got this team playing like a football team that's trying to win the division and make it to the playoffs. There was this idea of tanking and getting rid of Daniel Jones and all those sort of things. Now, look, it's going to be a battle. There's no question about it, especially when you got to play the Seahawks. That any team can show up, believe it or not, in terms of Seattle. You got the Steelers, and then you got to see who comes up after that for them. Now, when you talk about what type of team they could be, if they made the playoffs, it could be one of those teams that you don't want to play because the unknown is there. You don't know what Giant team could show up. Now, Daniel Jones, I don't know what the significant injury is of his injury. I don't know if he'll be missed for a significant amount of time or just a few days. We don't know yet.
Hamstring.
But is that hamstring going to hold him out? Or is that hamstring something that he could, wrap up and compete, go out there, compete with this NFC East deal on the line? As you look at it, beginning of the year, we all felt like the Cowboys, based on the coaching change and the makeup of the roster with the talent that they have, would win the East. You felt like Philly would win the East. Washington was on the rebound. Well, it's all reversed. Washington's a better football team than what most of us thought. Philly is nowhere near what we thought. And the Cowboys have basically done themselves in again on Thursday, Thanksgiving, losing to Washington.
Washington has now won 2 in a row, but up next for Washington, they're going to be in Pittsburgh, so you would think that could be a loss, and that could bode well for the Giants if they can obviously compound that Washington loss with a win of their own. You mentioned they are in Seattle. Let's just WL this the rest of the way because they are at 4-7, but it does get significantly tougher, mostly because now they're going outside of the division. They've been able to feast on the division, but at Seattle, feels like
probably a loss,
right? Then this is interesting because I just don't know what team I'm getting week to week here. They'll host the Arizona Cardinals.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know, and Arizona's coming back east, which is weird. I think the league would schedule that a certain way. They got Seattle, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Ravens, and the Cowboys. So in there, I got them losing to Seattle, beating the Cardinals and the Browns. Probably, be honest with you, it's a toss-up on the Ravens, and I got them beating the Cowboys.
Wow, that says everything about the Ravens, by the way, right there.
It's a toss-up on the Ravens. I don't know what, they think about it every day. There's a different COVID situation in Baltimore, so I don't know where this thing is going to head for them. You get the missing weeks after weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden you come back right before a Giant game. Who knows what you put out there on the field.
Got to give a ton of credit to the Giants because as much people have talked about their offense struggling, losing Daniel Jones yesterday to the hamstring injury, they bring in Colt McCoy, who was serviceable for sure. Losing Saquon Barkley earlier in the season, I just thought it was poetic justice that the Giants won the game essentially on a strip sack. Look, nothing's going right on offense. Our young studs aren't there. We might not have both the rest of the way, depending on how bad this hamstring injury is. There are some initial reports it's quote-unquote pretty bad. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, and we'll obviously follow.
As teams go, though, Zubin, you start to build confidence. You win games, you build that confidence. That you're a puppy, you're young, you don't know what you're doing. And all of a sudden, you start to say to yourself, oh, okay, it's not so bad. You stick the toe in the water just to gauge it and see how cold it is. If it's warm enough, you're going to dive all the way in. And I think that is what the Giants are doing. They got their toe in the water. They're trying to get a feel for it. And as they continue to realize, oh, we can play with these guys, they become very dangerous.
How impressive is it, in our final minute, how impressive is it that even though Joe Judge is old school, was throwing down the gauntlet with guys running laps in training camp when he had no bona fides, had never coached an NFL game, started 1-7. There's another team in that same city, by the way, that's spiraling, and their head coach has lost all modicum of control and respect. You're 1-7. You're sort of a hard ass coming in, let's be honest, on day one. And they never gave up on him. That just seems like a recipe for a disaster for a lot of teams.
Well, I'm winning. Believe it or not, I'm winning. I may not be winning at a clip that is, 10 wins, but I'm winning games, and we're in games. And so, therefore, you're going to give him an opportunity and a chance to screw it up. Adam Gase ain't never won nothing, right? Adam Gase came from Miami and basically was handed a jet job, should have been fired a year ago, but yet and still they retained him. Now look at it, it's a disaster of an organization this year. So, therefore, the players are like, man, please. Because they see it. The moment that they see it with Joe Judge, they either going to get on board with him or not. But he's certainly showing them that they have the ability to win football games and be right in the thick of things. And Adam Gase does not. No one likes Adam Gase. That's just the bottom line. They don't like him. No one likes him.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.